Hello, listeners and viewers. Yes, I said viewers also because this podcast is going to be also on YouTube and part of the YouTube series of podcasts that I'm doing with certain guests. Today, we're going to there's always that secret society people talk about. And there's also the conspiracy stuff talked about it, and it's called the Masons. And our guest today, I'm having a Mason on. His name is Steve. And the thing is, he's a longtime friend. And so maybe that's the tie-in. Strange invites strange, but we're going to bring Steve in right now. And we're going to side-by-side view. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Ed.
How are you doing today?
Actually pretty good.
Okay. We're still in the cover your face mode in the society in Illinois, but Steve has kind of the same attitude as I do. We've gone beyond the need, more or less, and we'll know in a couple weeks after all these protests and riotings and everything that's made Chicago what it is, I guess, over the years. But Steve is a Mason. Is that the title you would give yourself?
I'm a Mason, but because I've gone through the officers' chairs and I was a master of a lodge, I'm actually called a worshipful master in my lodge. And by other Masons, that's the way I would be greeted.
Okay. How many levels? Let me ask you that, because I've seen, as other people have seen probably on the internet, conspiracies. There's 90 levels. There's this level. There's that level. There's levels people don't know about unless you're up there in the, Grand Poopah, if you want to call it that way, is from the honeymooners stages. Give the facts on all that, Steve.
Well, to be a Mason, what we consider a Blue Lodge Mason, and that's because the colors that we use to represent the lodge and that's been chosen as the color, we call it a Blue Lodge. There's only 3 levels to Masonry. And that's you basically start off as an entered apprentice, you become a fellow craft, then you become a master Mason. And when you become a master Mason, that's as high as you can go in true Masonry. Now, after a Master Mason, there are what we call appendage organizations or other organizations you can join, such as one's called the Scottish Rite and one's called the York Rite. Now, those can go up to 32 or 33 degrees, and each degree is just a lesson. But a true Master Mason and Masonry ends at the 3rd degree.
Okay. And what degree are you at?
I've completed my 3rd degree. I'm a Master Mason. That allows me full privileges in lodge. That allowed me to become a lodge officer, which helps run the lodge, and then eventually become the master of the lodge.
And then how do you enter those other levels?
Basically, you would join the organizations, such as Scottish Rite and York Rite. It's just an application you'd go through. And then each one of the degrees you go up is basically a play or a story that they tell to become a better person or a better Mason. And when you sit through the plays, you then get accredited for the degrees. Once you complete them all the way up to 32, then eventually if you've put enough service in and contributed to the community, contributed to the organization, you can actually become a 33 degree Mason in some of them.
Wow. And what privileges or what difference does that make as far as?
They're just other groups that do meetings and do different things. Each one of the Masonic bodies, even the appendage bodies, has a charity that they support. So we are not a charitable organization, but we support charities. And most of them have to do with either the children or the widows, is how our stories go. So Masons support Masonic children's homes. If you become a Shriner, which is, once you become a Master Mason, you can join the Shrine. And in Illinois, it's the Medina Shrine, but they basically fund and run Shriners hospitals, which is, of course, for children.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones, we have a group for dyslexic children, so they help them with dyslexia, and they have a reading center. One of the groups I'm a part of is the Grotto, and basically we help handicapped children with dentistry. So we have special dentists and everything else, special trained dentists that we then pay for the bills, because handicapped children are sometimes more difficult to deal with at a dentist because they may not understand what's going on. They need to be put out under totally. And it's one of the things that is not handled very easily by normal dentists or one that's not trained for it. So
Right.
each one of the bodies supports a charity supporting children.
Okay, yeah. That's one thing a lot of people do not know, is that Shriners are basically Masons.
Yeah, to be a Shriner, you have to be a Master Mason.
Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of people don't know. Even your symbols are different, isn't it, for the Shriners compared to the Masons?
Yes, I mean you will see some similarities, such as the square and compass may show up in some of the Shriner things, but the Shriners have taken a more Eastern style, Egyptian or Arabic kind of style insignias with the sands and deserts, the camels, and
Yeah.
things like that.
Floating carpet, yeah.
Yes, if you see them parade, yes.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's where basically people know Shriners from, and our parades, and the hospital when it's advertised on TV or whatever. And that's why a lot of people I believe, don't know that the Shriners and the Masons are a combination, one and the other, all in one.
Right. Yeah, they're part of each other and a growing organization from one another.
Have you done any parades as a Shriner?
I haven't done one as a Shriner. I have done it as a Mason with our local lodge. We've done 4th of July parades, Memorial Day parades. I haven't done any with the Shrine units, but I mean, the Shriners have a black horse troop where they have black horses that ride in there. They have segways. Nice. They have small little 1957 go-karts. They have flying carpets. So it gives each group within the Shrine, as a large organization, gives smaller groups that get together, and this way you have the big organization, but then you have the smaller groups, because a Shrine is within a large area. There may be 100 lodges that feed into a Shrine, and not every Mason from a Blue Lodge will become a Shriner, but the Shriners are a wider birth organization, so it's nice to have the smaller groups within there to be able to associate and basically to get together and do the fraternity that we want.
Sweet. Okay, so that's something educating the general public on. Nice. Now, is Masonry a religion?
It's not a religion. We do not claim to be a religion, and no one ever will. The big thing that makes it seem like a religion is the requirement that you have to believe in a supreme being. Whether that's God, Buddha, whatever religion you belong into, you have to believe in a supreme being.
When you were inducted as being the head guy at the Masonic Temple, that's how I would call it, right? Yeah, okay. It was open to the public that wanted to come, or that you invited, let's put it that way. And
it is open to the public. That would be an installation where we're installing the officers of the lodge, and family, friends, the public's invited to see the installation and experience it.
Yeah. They had, right there in the center, they had a humongous, I'm just saying this to the listeners and viewers, a humongous looking Bible. Okay, this thing was huge. All right. I even asked you, I said, "Is it okay to touch this?" Okay, I didn't want a bunch of people jumping on me because I touched a sacred item, that would have been sacred to you guys. So it does show the faith. And the nice thing is that I didn't know was the fact that it doesn't just have to be God. It could be, like you said, whatever, as long as you believe in a higher power.
Yes. And we don't only just have a Bible. Depending on the people that make up the lodge, there can be other religious books that people swear an oath to. So we've had the Quran on our altar. We've had several other books on the altar. Whatever religion you belong to and the religious book you have, that's what would be on the altar for that Mason.
Nice. Okay, that was okay. Now that answered my question. I didn't ask you back then. But yeah, that Bible has to be, it's old, ain't it? That I see.
It's well, our the lodge I'm with is over 100 years old, so it probably was the Bible they used to start the lodge, and of course then things were bigger and more ornate, so that's why it looked probably a little bit bigger and a little bit more special, because that is the one that we use for the lodge at the opening and closing of our meetings and things like that. So
It's beautiful. It was beautiful. I mean, and that's why I was like, I don't want to touch this thing. Okay.
we touch it every time we open lodge. So
Yeah, maybe sacred to the lodge itself. Other question that I wrote down, was George Washington a Mason? What about the founding fathers?
yeah, that's one of the conspiracy theories, is that it was the Masons who started the country and they meant to do it for some other reasons. George Washington was a Mason, so were a lot of other founding fathers Masons. And it wasn't that the Masons started the country, is you had a bunch of men that got together, they met on a regular basis, they were trying to become better men, and that's what Masonry tries to improve each individual. Well, they were already talking, we don't do any, no are allowed in lodge, so we are talking about but no politics are allowed in lodge and be discussed in lodge. That's one of the rules of the lodge. But these are men that got together already. So when they went out and met in the taverns and the bars, well, of course, that's where they started talking about the revolution and everything else. And it started. It wasn't Masonry that started it. It was just Masons were already meeting. They trusted each other. They knew each other. It just made sense that if they had an issue, they would discuss it outside of the lodge in the taverns when they hung out, and that eventually it would grow to, the revolution. And that's where a lot of people see, like Washington, D.C. has several Masonic symbols built into it, like the square and compass and the angles. And, the dollar bill has it on there because, well, these guys knew that they believed in the organization. They believed the organization helped promote people to become better, men to become better men. So they built some of the imagery into the way the country was being built, hoping that the country would become a better version of what was already out there.
Is that you or me?
That was me. I think
okay. We are, for the listeners and viewers, we are in the same building, but because we're doing Zoom, I decided maybe we should separate. And Steve's a very popular guy, and his thing's going, probably his phone going off.
Yeah, actually, it's a phone in the computer. I don't know why. It's gone now.
But he's popular. So, what have you done in masonry? Masonry.
Like I said, I did sit the officers' chairs, and a part of sitting the officers' chairs is learning the ritual to open and close lodge, which is just our ceremony. We call it ritual. It's just the ceremony we do. And that's what a lot of people think is the secrecy of Masonry, is that, all these secret ceremonies, they're all published on the internet. There's a book out there that has them all published, and they're about 95% of the accurate and everything else, few words off. So there's no secrecy. It's just that we memorize the ritual and our ceremonies, and we put them on. To go through to 3 degrees, it's a large play basically put on by the members of the lodge, and the lines have to be memorized. And that's where people say it's secret. No, it's just we put in some work to memorize them. I'm not one that does a lot of good memorization, so I leave that to other members most of the time. Mm-hmm. But so I've sat the chairs and helped run the lodge. I sat as the master of the lodge, but just doing the lodge wouldn't keep people in. Some people love the ritual. Some people love, the symmetry, symbols within Masonry and the esoteric meaning behind them. I'm more an active Mason. So Illinois had a children's home for a while. They closed it down a few years ago. But we used to go. We sponsored a child at the home, so we helped with their funding for birthdays, Christmas presents. We actually put on movie night at the home, so we'd show movies. We got them a popcorn machine. So I was very involved with the children's home, taking them out to sporting activities. The whole home, our lodge would pay for them to go to a sporting activity. And a lot of the organizations would give us free tickets, which was very nice, or very good discounted. When that closed down, one of the things I do is I have a dog, as you heard her bark in the background. Right. There's a group, the Masonic Association of Service and Therapy Dogs. Well, I got her trained as a therapy dog so that we can go to Shriners Hospital, Illinois Masonic Hospital, and visit with the patients with my dog, which was one of the ways, once again, is a way we give back to our community. We give back to the world and become better people. through our service. And that's one of the services I do. And right now I'm in the process of going through a group called the Grotto. They're a little more of the, they do more fun activities and everything else, but they involve, the members, they involve the members' ladies, the families and things like that. So it's basically just a reason to get together with people that are a similar interest, that want to improve themselves, want to donate their time and service to a charity or to help a better organization. And that's basically what I've been doing.
Good. And I know you invited me if I was interested in becoming a Mason. Is that one of the rules in individual? Because I know it is with the Moose Club and all that. A person has to be sponsored. They can't just come knocking on the door and say, "Hey, I want to be a Mason."
Well, you can come knocking on the door. We will accept you, but you will eventually have to have 2 people sign for you, or actually 3 people sign for you that vouch for your character and everything else. Each lodge is responsible for having a committee that will go out and interview not only the member, but also the member's family, because if you're going to take a person away for meetings and things like that and expect them to do service, you want to make sure their family understands that too. And it kind of gives you an idea of what that person is, what their family life is, if they fit within your particular lodge, because each lodge has a different personality and a different way of doing things. So you want to make sure that person will be happy and be an active member in your lodge. Now, the one thing that Masons, and it's been throughout time, and maybe it'll change as people are getting busier on the internet and not doing doing more things and sports to their kids, and membership has started to decline, is there's a phrase you might see on a bumper sticker that'll be "to be one, ask one." And that's basically, to be a Mason, you should ask another Masons. They'll tell you about it. They'll invite you to the meeting. So the Masonry doesn't really go out and recruit members. I mean, you want to recruit your friends and like that, but the idea is, if you want to be one, you should ask a Mason. They'll tell you about it. They'll invite you to a meeting. Most of our meetings involve a meal, so they'll invite you to the meal before the meeting. You get to meet the members. They get to meet you. You would then either wait while the meeting's being held in whatever their meeting area or group areas for meals, and then possibly meet with them afterwards and then go out afterwards after the meeting. But you cannot attend the meeting until you've been invited in and you've been initiated through the 3 degrees.
And there's usually fees for this too, right? The same.
Yeah.
A support fee, because you're supporting the lodge.
Right. There are costs to having a lodge building. There are costs to the meals, to running the lodge, and paying the electricity, the insurance, new fire codes that pop up every now and then.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lodges have been around for 100, 150 years. So yeah, some of the buildings are not in the best shape. So the upkeep in the buildings are there. Most of the fees are somewhere between $50 to $100 a year for membership and that. And part of that goes to the Grand Lodge, and part of it goes to charities and things like that. So, and there's little expenses. Like I said, if we have a charity event, you're expected to participate, and there may be a cost associated with that event. And that helps either support the charity or helps pay for that event that you're doing.
Yeah, even you and I belonged at one time to a Magic Club, and folks, there was even a fee there, and it's nearly $100 to be, when you first get initiated into the Magic Club. So this is a lot more of a responsibility, being a Mason, what they do and all that, than a Magic Club. So their fees don't sound bad at all. And if you're looking for someplace to discover rituals and all that, you might be better off going on Facebook, looking up Catholic witches, okay, which does exist, than with the Masons. Am I right, Steve?
Yeah, definitely right. But I mean, there is a whole side to Masonry that talks about the symbolism, why the square, why the compass, why all the different symbols that are used in Masonry and everything else. So there is that kind of esoteric part to Masonry that some people love, and they love delving into the history, because unfortunately Masonry, there is not a starting point that says this is when Masonry started, this is the first meeting, everything built from here, this is why they did it. It kind of formed, and that's where a lot of conspiracy theories come from, is that since there's not that concrete history, people are trying to fill in the gaps of, well,
right,
how do we get from nothing to meeting in lodges and things like that? But so there is always that research and the meanings behind it and everything else, and everybody finds their own way in Masonry, whether it's ritual, whether it's the esoteric meanings of the symbolism, whether it's helping with the charities, helping organizing events and things like that. So, I mean, it is an organization that you should be able to find your own spot in, no matter what you want to do.
Question, since you brought it up, I didn't. The symbols. Can you give a brief description of what each one means?
Well, basically, the square, compass, and level are the three main symbols. You'll see the square and compass making the little triangle, typically, you know, the little square almost.
Yeah.
You know, the compass on top, the square on the bottom.
Right.
And basically, once again, the symbols are about becoming a better person, because we're no longer carving stones up and everything else, which is what those would be used for. But the square is the square virtue is supposed to represent virtue. So
Okay.
the square of virtue, you're supposed to be virtuous. The compass, where you circumscribe around a circle, is to keep your passions within that circle. Don't overdo things. Don't go over exuberant. Don't over imbibe in libations and things like that, and get crazy. Is to keep yourself in control. And then, of course, the level is keep yourself level at all times and moving forward in a nice, stable direction. So once again, even the symbols, even though they come from the stonemason or doing stonemasonry, is now speculative. So it's about, once again, becoming a better person, which is all masonry strives for.
Good. And with that, we're going to call this a day. For those, Steve's been a long time friend. He's been involved in many of the things I've done before even doing this, and kind of bringing him in to this 20 years later, being part of it. And I'd like to thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Ed, for allowing me to share information about masonry.
Yeah, because it is fascinating. And people always, have a conspiracy theory about it. And hopefully we put a kibosh to that, at least for the people that are listening to the show. Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, listeners. And coming up soon will be my next couple haunted locations that I talk about, and also will be my commentary at the end. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. All right.
You big chicken.